verses and then we'll go into our presentation. So those of you who like to memorize, these are the 4 verses. Very good to memorize them. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Macchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantasya mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So we'll talk more about this in the presentation. We're just going through the verses. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te.
To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me.
Teshamevanukampartham aham ajnanajam tamaha nashayami atmabhavasto jnanadipena bhasvata.
To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with a shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance.
So after Krishna gives this beautiful presentation about himself and the process of bhakti, then at this point, because Arjuna has been asking so many questions throughout the Bhagavad-Gita, and at this point, these verses have so much impact on Arjuna that he actually realizes, he already knows Krishna, but the curtain actually gets removed from his eyes, and he accepts and announces, and in great ecstasy announces Krishna to be the Supreme. So we'll read these verses. Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum Ahustvam Rishaya Sarve Devrashi Naradastatha Asito Devalo Vyasa Swayam Chaiva Brabhishime. Arjuna said, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa confirm this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. Sarvametadritam manne yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vaktim vidur devana danava. O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. So Arjuna here first declares Krishna, and you can see his ecstasy is evident from the repeated use of the word Parama. So in this first verse, Parama is repeated so many times because Arjuna is like just exuding that devotional ecstasy. And he declares Krishna to be the Supreme, but then he realizes that he is friend of Krishna and he is a cousin of Krishna. So people might think that he is being biased, and that's why he's declaring Krishna to be the Supreme. So therefore, he says, not my opinion, but the opinion of the great sages, Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa. They also confirm this same truth about you. And you yourself are telling this to me. So he's establishing for the whole world that to accept anybody as the Supreme Lord, it is not just somebody's personal opinion that counts, but also it has to be verified in the scriptures. It has to be verified by the great sages. And then only somebody can be accepted as the Supreme. So we'll go to our presentation.
Such a beautiful verse. Macchitta madgata prana.
So this verse is actually describes the sum and substance of devotional practice. Krishna says, Mat chitta, which means, chitta means our consciousness, our mind, which is fully devoted, fully attracted, or given to Krishna, given away. Just like when a boy and a girl, they fall in love with each other. They give their consciousness, their heart to each other. They just give it away. They don't have it anymore. So like that, Krishna is saying that my devotees, they have given their heart to me. And Madgata Prana, which means not only the heart, but also prana prana means the life energy. So it includes all the energy that we have. It includes whatever activities that we do, that is also given to Krishna, Madgata Prana. The whole purpose of life, or the whole life, is given to Krishna, and it's not for any other purpose. Bodhayanta Parasparam. It's a very significant word here. Bodha means to know or understand something. Bodhayati means to understand it yourself. But here Krishna is using the word Bodhayanta. Bodhayata means to help somebody else understand it. So this is the nature of devotees, that they're always getting great joy in sharing about Krishna with others, with each other. Parasparam, with each other. And Kathayantascha, which means they are talking about Krishna. They find great pleasure in talking about Krishna. Nitya means regularly. And through this, Tushyanti cha Ramanti cha, that Tushyanti means to get satisfied, and Ramanti means to find great pleasure. So they are satisfied and find great pleasure in just talking with each other about me.
And so this is actually a very significant thing about the process of bhakti, because in all other processes, one is asked to either maintain complete silence. So there are many yogis who take up lifelong vows even of total silence, or they're expected to just move into a cave and not see anybody else and just live completely all by themselves. But the process of bhakti, because Krishna is always in relationship with the other devotees, he's a very social person, and so the process of bhakti is actually, of course, there is also the element of introspection, but there is also this aspect of coming together and glorifying together, or talking about Krishna together. Like Naji was asking yesterday about gossiping about Krishna. Is it allowed? And we were mentioning how the spiritual world is characterized by continuous gossip of Krishna. So every corner, devotees come together and they're talking about what Krishna has been up to, right? So that is the nature. And so so they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. And also this idea about bodhayanta, right? Teaching others. This is also, so we'll talk about this principle, because therein lies the very heart of bhakti. So maybe we can, proceed. So this is actually, I didn't know that there is actually a term coined by psychologists. It's called sharenting. I was thinking, who loves to talk about, their most beloved, right? And actually, even more than a boy or a girl talking about each other, it's a mother or a father. I mean, we laugh sometimes when we get on social media, whether it's Facebook. It's crowded. It's like, the children, the babies, they dominate social media, right? So apparently, without their knowledge. So this is actually a little video where, they talk about how parents are, it's called sharenting. It's a trend of how, parents are really sharing so much, even before, child is, not even just an infant, right? Everything is now being posted on social media. Let's watch it and then we'll talk more.
Today. Remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to follow us on Facebook so you can be a big part of the conversation. I'm Cheryl Prehan. I'm here with Aisha Howard and Caitlin Ross, and we're talking about what you post online of your children could come back to haunt them. This is something I started thinking about as soon as I got pregnant. It's something a lot of moms and dads think about. A new study says the average 5-year-old has 1,500 pictures of them online. Wow. Another found that 90% of kids have an online presence by the time they're 5 years old. It's called sharenting, and some experts say it can cause real damage to your child, including costing them jobs and identity theft. But when told this information, some parents still say they're going to post whatever they want.
Might just be more thoughtful, even more intentional now in what I post.
When you go to Target and give them your social security number to get that raise,
it just goes on. I mean, that's not you can watch this on your own time. I guess the main point that we wanted to bring out of this is that, we have a real need, to share something that we love. We talk about it. It's just the nature. I think, whenever a person finds a movie, for example, or like that's how social media works, right? That, we find something and we really, because we love to share with each other, and when we share, then it expands, our happiness expands, right? So, it's very natural. But as we can see here, that in the material world, when we just share about even our children, then it comes back, in a different, the effect is different. Like, for example, if you just keep looking at someone, right? Or if you want to, then somebody might feel like, oh, this person is being too clingy, or this person is stalking me or taking too much of my time. So we have a natural tendency of wanting to share, wanting to talk about someone, or wanting to just gaze upon someone, and we don't find that perfect object. And so that object of Sharenting is actually Krishna saying, I can be that person. And once you start, because it's interesting, there was another study that showed that children are actually turning back and actually suing their parents because they are, or suing is maybe a strong word, but yeah, that's what the article said. But, they're upset, that why are you sharing so much about me? But Krishna, on the other hand, he's when we share about Krishna, then Krishna is happy, and even when we the people who hear about Krishna are also happy. So it's called Anandam Buddhi Vardhana, which means that the happiness quotient just keeps increasing the more we talk about Krishna.
Yeah, when two people are talking about Krishna, then they benefit, but everybody else who are maybe not directly part of the conversation, even they're listening, they also find the same level of happiness. So it's equally available to everybody, and nobody feels frustrated at any stage of their life.
And it's all auspicious, right? So
this is the aspect about Krishna says Bodhayanta, which means enlightening one another about Krishna. And this aspect of enlightening one another, sharing or talking about Krishna with others is a very essential aspect of bhakti. Because it allows our bhakti to grow. It allows our own attraction for Krishna to grow. And we never become static or kind of dead in our bhakti. And this is a powerful example. This river Jordan in Middle East, it feeds two water bodies. In the south, it feeds Dead Sea. And in the north, it feeds Sea of Galilee. And the Dead Sea, as you can see, is dead. It has no life because...
Oh, there was a lot of... there was a whole list of all the...
Oh, that's going to happen from there.
Okay.
So the Dead Sea doesn't have any life, and I'm not going to speak much. And then the Sea of Galilee is thriving with life. So
even though the Sea of Galilee is actually much smaller, I think instead of us saying, let's just share with you.
Okay.
Where is it?
Just 1 second. Give us 1 minute and then I'll share the screen with you. Okay. So, where is that?
There it is, down there. So these are some facts about Dead Sea. So it's actually a lake, it's not a sea. And so no fish, aquatic animals, no vegetation, nothing can live in it. That's why it gets its name, Dead Sea. But it gets all its water from the Jordan River.
And it is, the water is the, what do you call that? The density of the water is so high that the human body can float in it. In fact, in many places, you can just lie down and read a book.
So now these are the facts about the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee is just north, so it's just right adjacent to the Dead Sea. It also receives its water from the River Jordan. But the difference is that it is filled up with rich, colorful marine life, and it's home to over like 20 different types of fishes. It has lots of plants. So, so the question that may come up in our minds is that what's the difference? Why is one thing dead and the other thing teeming with life?
So this is a question for you guys, those of you who already know the answer, if you can just let others kind of take a stab at it, and let's do some thinking why one body is dead and the other body is filled with life.
I don't know the answer, but does it have to do possibly with how the soil receives the water?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, well, not really. There is something else going on there.
Is it like, is the direction of the water, is it coming to the Sea of Galilee first and then the Dead Sea?
No, it's in the opposite directions, right? The Sea of Galilee is in the north and Sea of Dead Sea is in the south. The clue lies in the word Bodhayanta.
That's all right. So the answer to that is that the Dead Sea simply receives the water and just contains it. There's no outlet. It just receives it and keeps it. The Sea of Galilee, on the other hand, it receives the water and it keeps, there is an outlet, right? So
let me share it again.
Oh, there is more picture?
Looks like there's a couple more slides.
Okay. So the River Jordan flows into the Sea of Galilee and then flows out. The water simply passes through the Sea of Galilee, going in and then out. That keeps its water healthy, vibrant, teeming with marine life. The Dead Sea is so far below the mean sea level, it has no outlet. So the water flows in, but it does not flow out as there are no outlet streams, right? So
basically, Dead Sea doesn't give, and therefore it has no life.
So that's the idea. When Krishna is speaking about Bodhayanta Parasparam, that when we, because it's so easy, right? Even in spiritual life, we can be so self-focused, and we can only think about our own spiritual progress and our spiritual happiness, and it's easy for all of us to be in that space. But a huge part of this practice of bhakti is to see how everyone is actually interconnected and actually be able to become an instrument of love and compassion, whatever that may mean. It may mean different things.
Yeah, our heart is like the River Jordan is Krishna's mercy, Krishna's love flowing into our heart, and we can let it flow to. And the more we give, Lord Chaitanya says, the more you give out this love to others, then the more you will receive. So this is a stockpile that actually increases by giving it to others, rather than just hoarding it for ourselves.
So that is actually the source of, great happiness for Krishna. Because again, another aspect to consider here is that our happiness is a small part of Krishna's happiness. And, what are the ways of sharing this? So yeah, just unlimited ways, right? Whatever is in our heart, if we share our inspiration. We have, a wonderful teacher that you are probably going to meet, one of these days. And he uses the term fan the spark. So fan the spark means that, everyone has a spiritual spark. And however, in whatever creative ways that we can encourage every single person. So this act of encouraging sometimes might simply mean that, seeing something positive in someone and helping them, discover that, and ultimately helping them discover their relationship with the Supreme Person, right? So that is, and then of course it has so many different forms. We share this chanting, for example. We cook prasadam and we share that. We, share these wonderful books that we have. That's something that, we as a community, we engage in a lot. We send these books to motels and prisons and different places, hospitals. So like that, there are so many ways in which we can become a part of just, wanting to share. Because Krishna has, like, sometimes the question may come up, what do you give to a person who has everything, right? And so Krishna is he says, everything is emanating from me. And the first verse says, right, that aham sarvasya prabhavo. So everything is coming from him. So what do you give back to someone who is the source of everything? So there is one thing that he does not control.
And that one thing that Krishna doesn't do or cannot do is to get some living entity become attracted to him again. So the millions and trillions of living entities loitering in this material world. But that is one frustration of Krishna, that he cannot force anybody to turn towards him. So when we help somebody, encourage somebody to turn towards Krishna, then Krishna becomes so happy that, oh, you have done something which even I cannot do. And of course he can do that, but he doesn't do that because he has given us that free will. So when we transform somebody's free will or channel somebody's free will to give to Krishna, connect with Krishna.
Or remind someone, right?
Remind someone.
And it doesn't, I mean, sometimes we may have some feelings about that, it can, but it's an art. It's an art of, when we ourselves carry this love within our heart, then it's very attractive. And people, when they come in contact with us, they can immediately feel that there is something they're experiencing. And then you go, I want to taste that. Just like many times when we go to these vegan festivals, we find that somebody is walking around with a very nice snow cone or something, right?
Or a coconut.
Or a coconut. And we go, hey, where did you get that one from? And you see they're really happy with it. So you want one too.
And they get really excited when you ask them that question. Oh, you go there, you'll find this. They really want to help you find it.
So it's the same thing. And the happiness that one gets by becoming, a conduit, for this is something that can only be experienced. So I was also thinking about, this wonderful story about this man who spends the whole day, he just walks on this ocean side, and there are these fishes that get swept away by the waves, and they find themselves on the beach, and they're really struggling. And so this man just, he picks up a fish and he throws it back in the water. And there is a man, and he does that all day long. And every time he throws a fish back in, there are 10 more that come out of the water. And so there's a man who watches him do that. And finally, he cannot resist it. He goes to him and he says, what's the matter with you? Like, who,
you're doing an impossible task.
Yeah, who really cares? Like, what difference is it going to really make? One person out of like these countless, or one fish out of these countless fishes, what difference is it going to make? So he picks up a fish and he throws it back in the water and he says, just made a difference to that one, right? So it's in our very tiny, small way, when we can make that connection. And what Lokadaksha and I, what we have seen in our own life is that it's amazing, because when we connect with each other on the platform of spiritual sharing, then the relationships are so genuine and so deep, right? So your heart actually becomes filled with that happiness of that deepest connection.
Because we are all trying to find people who are our own, people who will be our own for the rest of our life. And it's hard to find people who will be your own. But when we are connected with this thread of Krishna, then we actually become our own for each other.
So the third, category of knowledge that we talked about is called prayojana, or what is the final goal? So
here Krishna is saying that when you engage in something like this talking about me, sharing about me, those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So this is the first reward, he says. This is like the first promise he makes. You can come to me. And this is very important, because this understanding to come to Krishna is very difficult to overcome, because it's very difficult to come by, because there are so many distractions in this world. There's so many paths that are there, and one can easily get lost. Like, for example, if you are lost in a cave which has so many different paths, and you'll find out somebody is lost in a forest, and you'll see that they go round and round in circles. They keep going round and round in circles. They're not able to find the exit door. So it's like a maze. You need somebody to really tell you how to really get out of it. And this is what Krishna is saying, that I provide this homing technology through which you can actually find your way back home.
And we see that, right? I think we talked about this in one of our discussions, that how, a single tear, and we have seen this, through the course of, talking to so many devotees and new people, that how, their journey almost inadvertently has started with maybe at one point putting their hands up in the air and saying, I really want to know you. What's going on? I want to get the answer for this, or this doesn't make sense. There must be something more to it, right? Something on those lines. And then immediately the doors start to open, right? So this is because Krishna is actually seated right within our heart as this Paramatma, as the super soul, right? And he's watching, for countless lifetimes. He's been waiting there, just waiting and waiting and waiting, that one day, maybe they will want to come out of this deep forest. And so whenever we show any inclination to want to know, then the rest of the arrangement is actually made by Krishna. It's not a coincidence that when we stumble upon a path and we find ourselves being able to do it, it's because there has been an arrangement. It's an arrangement that we cannot sometimes understand, But it's definitely, and this is actually what Krishna is saying, that, and it doesn't just happen before, it actually continues.
And Krishna is, because he wants everybody to come back to him, he has given this homing technology. He's planted this homing chip in our heart, you can say, and through which, and once we start inquiring about him just a little bit, then he activates that chip. Okay, now you start receiving the signals. Okay, how to really go back, just like a GPS.
GPS coordinates.
Yeah.
Just like a GPS, when it's turned off, then it doesn't receive signal. I remember once we went to Europe, like many years ago, and I bought a GPS from here, and it was supposed to work in Europe, and we landed in Paris, and I was very kind of unsure and suspicious whether it would work there or not. And then I turned it on at one point in Paris, and I was like eagerly waiting. Is this GPS going to receive the signal? Will it start working? So after 15 minutes, finally locked into the satellite, and then we said, okay, you are at this place in Paris. And I was so happy that, so that is the chip that we all have in our heart. And Krishna is saying that I'll activate the chip so that you can come back to me.
So there are actually, as we, explore the world of nature, there is such a strong instinct to return back to one's source. It is amazing. And, these are animals that are, miles and miles away. And, you would think that where are they getting this intelligence from? So,
so there's so many such animals. We have videos about 3 animals, the salmons, amazing journey they do from back from the ocean.
Amongst the wettest months of the year, with rain falling on 2 out of 3 days. Deluge is a critical part of the life cycle of one animal.
So they go downstream, they lay their eggs, right?
They go to the ocean basically to feed.
And lay their eggs?
Here at the falls of Shin, 30
Okay.
miles north of Inverness, big numbers are gathering. Returning from their ocean migration, they're getting ready to move upriver.
Because they can't lay their eggs in the ocean, the eggs will die.
Their
So they have
eggs
to come all the
can
way up.
only survive in the shallow headwaters of highland rivers, high up in the mountains. So raised water levels present them with their best chance of reaching the spawning ground.
So this October-November time period, the water levels are high. That's the only window they have to go back.
They must time it right if their offspring are to survive and make their own journey out to sea. But there's a problem. The falls are blocking the salmon's path. There's only one way to get around them, and that is to go over them.
It's beautiful.
It's a game of persistence and luck. Launching themselves above the sill requires formidable acceleration. Their muscles are adapted for short, sharp bursts of energy.
So this is the same.
Leaps can cover more than 3.
This is the same acceleration a living entity needs to come out of this material world.
Yeah, I was also thinking that Radhanath Swami and I think Vaisheshika Prabhu, they talk about how they had this experience of meeting a forest ranger when they were in the redwood trees, I think. Yeah. And so this Moorwood forest. And so this forest ranger actually had a stick with a little magnet attached to it. And he was spending the whole time just trying to do something in the waters. And so they asked him, like, what are you doing here? So he said that he was removing what's called micro trash. And so they said, what is this micro trash? So I think the salmon, it uses the sense of the nose, smell, right, to find its way back to its source. So if there is any kind of, like, even this tiny bit of trash on the way, then what it does is it obstructs its ability to find that way back. And so, the point being that for us, we have so much clutter, anartha, right? And so even though we have a natural, like you said, we have a chip that will take us back, but right now we are not able to sense it because there's so much of this, not just micro, but macro trash, And so that's why Krishna appears in two features. He sits within the heart, but he knows that we are not right now ready to hear that super soul directly. So he also manifests as in the external representation of his devotees, who remove that trash and say, okay, here is the path, and this is how you can find your way back. And that is what happens at the point of initiation. The spiritual master or the guru takes the responsibility of taking the disciple back, all the way back to the spiritual world. So that is that is the journey that we embark on. And
the next animal that we are going to show is homing pigeon. Quite a mystery how people have not been able to find out how the pigeon is able to go to a destination every single time and then come back even hundreds and thousands of miles. They can fly and come back precisely.
Do we need to watch each one of them, or?
What's the time?
Yeah, because
So you can watch this on YouTube on your own, but we wanted to show you the last one, which is quite fascinating actually.
So this is actually quite incredible. Go ahead.
So this is the story of penguins. The penguins they give birth to babies during the winter month because they have to wait for the ice to become solid so the baby can be the baby won't fall into the water below. So what they do is during the summer they feed themselves near the ocean because there's a lot of life there. And when it's time to give birth, then both the mother and the father, they go back inland, like many miles inland into the white ice. And that's when the mother gives birth to the baby. But the baby cannot touch the ground because as soon as it touches the ground, it will die. So the mother transfers gives the birth and keeps the baby on her feet and then transfers the baby to the feet of the father. And then the father puts the baby in the pouch and just stands there. And the mother makes a very difficult journey from there to the ocean so that she can feed herself. It takes her about a month to get to the ocean. And then she spends a few days just feeding herself and accumulating food so she can bring it back. And then she makes again this journey back home. Now, this journey is not an easy one because there are no landmarks, there are no guideposts. There's nothing, it's all white ice, all looks the same. But the mother makes the journey all the way back home, and then we'll watch what happens. Days, then both the father and the baby will die. So the mother feeds both the father and the baby, and then takes over the baby, and then the father goes to the ocean to feed himself.
I was just thinking, a couple of thoughts that came to my mind as I was watching this. One is this very beautiful verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, where it is described that let my heart be attracted to you, just like the water rushes, the river water rushes to the ocean, and how a baby sits in the nest waiting for the mother to come, or a calf waits for the cow to come, or as a wife, her husband is away, is waiting for the husband to return home. So I was just thinking of that verse, and also the other thing I was thinking of was this cry, right? That how do you recognize each other in the midst of so many? And so, the mother actually makes a cry, and that cry is unique, and that cry is received by the father, who then also responds with a cry. And so it's again this idea of crying out, and that's what we do when we're chanting, just calling out, and it's through that we find our way, back to where we belong.
So this homing technology is there in all of us. All we have to do is call out. And this is the other reward that Krishna gives. The promises, he says, to show them special mercy, I dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So this ignorance is actually forgetfulness of Krishna or our neglect of Krishna. And when Krishna is pleased, then he removes that darkness by giving us love for him. That's the highest prayojana. Prema pumartho mahan, it is said. That the pumartho means the goal or destination. That's the highest goal or purpose of life, is to receive Krishna's prema, the love for Krishna.
And that is what actually the heart is actually hankering for, right? Of all the things that we do, whether it is our pursuit of knowledge or our pursuit of eternity or whatever else that we may be looking for, it finds its culmination in this love. And when we find that love, you know, then everything else pales in comparison. Right? It is described that world, if you combine it together, it does not even compare to a drop of happiness that you get from the happiness of liberation. And then all the happiness that one can get through that does not compare, not even a drop, to the happiness that one can get through the process of love or bhakti. And this is something that was also understood by Einstein. It's quite interesting that this is his last letter that he actually wrote to his daughter, where he talks about, because he really was into trying to find out this unified field theory. So he talks about how, you know, this you know, scientists and people still haven't understood that the most powerful force in this universe is actually,
Let him say.
yeah, let him say. This is a letter from 1938 from Albert Einstein. You can fast forward it because it's a lot. It was hidden. Are we ready for this now?
Albert Einstein, who we all knew was a great genius, wrote some letters to his daughter, the theory of relativity. Very few understood me, and what I will reveal now to transmit to mankind will also collide with the misunderstanding and prejudice in the world. I ask you to guard the letters as long as is necessary, years, decades, until society is advanced enough to accept what I will explain below. There is an extremely powerful force that, so far, science has not found a formal explanation to. It is a force that includes and governs all others, and is even behind any phenomenon operating in the universe, and has not yet been identified by us. This universal force is love. When scientists looked for a unified theory of the universe, they forgot the most powerful unseen force. Love is light that enlightens those who give and receive it. Love is gravity because it makes some people feel attracted to others. Love is power because it multiplies the best we have and allows humanity not to be extinguished in their blind selfishness. Love unfolds and reveals. For love we live and die. Love is God, and God is love. This force explains everything and gives meaning to life. This is the variable that we have ignored for too long. Maybe because we are afraid of love, because it's the only energy in the universe that man has not learned to drive at will. To give visibility to love, I made a simple substitution in my most famous equation. If instead of E equals mc squared, we accept that the energy to heal the world can be obtained through love, multiplied by the speed of light squared, we arrive at the conclusion that love is the most powerful force there is, because it has no limits.
Wow.
After the failure of humanity in the...
It's quite powerful. Yeah. So that's that. And that is actually the process of bhakti, where we are trying to cultivate. So right now, our heart does not experience this natural love. What we experience is a pure substitute for this love. And so the process of bhakti is uncovering and refining, you know, this pure love that is within our heart, that which we are actually looking for. But when we don't find it, we just substitute it with something else. And as a result, we continuously keep getting frustrated in this way and that way. So, you know, we have to first, you know, become ready. First, we have to understand, because this word love is used in a sort of, it's overused, right? To the point where we don't even understand what does it mean and what is, and in fact, Prabhupada also talks about how in this material world, in the world of matter, pure love is impossible to come by. So this can only happen in the realm of, in our relationship with Krishna. So we'll stop here and see if you guys have any questions and reflections. Is chanting our way of calling out, or does it have to be a deeper calling like a cry out, similar to our cry out when we are broken inside? Such a good question. Okay, there's a lot here. Okay. It's not receiving water from the greater ocean. What are the ways of sharing this? Achyuta Prabhu said it's beneficial to talk to people ahead of you, people behind you, and people at your level. What a wonderful way to put it. Yes. Beneficial to talk to people ahead of you, people behind you, and people at your level. But don't you think you have to reach to some height in spiritual ladder before you can fruitfully share? No. It's amazing, you know. I mean, just think about it in our Sangha here, you know, our gathering here. When you guys share something from your realization, it inspires everyone and it moves everyone. And I think that because every person is actually a spiritual spark. So, and they have their own realization.
And it's very unique to everybody. Whatever, even at the very beginning level, we share something about Krishna, that is very unique. And that has the power to encourage and inspire everybody else, no matter how advanced they may be. So this is sharing on a different level. It's not, I mean, we can learning some technology and sharing about it, because that we may feel, oh, I don't really know about it, so how can I share? But Krishna is he doesn't come in parts, right? He comes completely. So when we are sharing complete Krishna, even though we are sharing a little bit about him, but when we share, then it's the full Krishna that goes out and impacts the heart of somebody.
And I guess we can attest to it that, you know, when we hear from all of you, you know, we feel so enlivened and so inspired, and we actually, you know, desire to hear your realizations. And that's one reason why we always open it up for reflection, because just hearing from you actually enlivens our heart. So this is the nature, you know, that Parasparam, right? That we are speaking and then you are speaking and you are writing your realization, and then that gives us impetus for another day. So that is the nature. So no, there is no, it's not that one has to come to a certain level, but one can start at whatever level one is. And then Krishna will give us more and more realization. Why are the penguins so far from the ocean? Why not stay closer? I know, right? I think you also asked the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, the ice won't be hard enough for them because near the ocean, because it'll be warmer.
Oh, see?
And plus there will be more predators near the ocean.
Probably, yeah. Is chanting our way of calling out, or does it have to be a deeper calling, like a cry out, similar to our cry out when we are broken inside? Chanting is a form of crying. And so chanting is the best kind of crying, because in it we are actually calling out the name, and then our crying becomes the deepest call, right? I mean, you know, and you know, we've experienced it also, that one can actually, you know, because many times when we are crying, then we may feel that we are crying alone. But crying in chanting is like crying with Krishna. So it, you know, it's a much deeper experience. And
ultimately our chanting, that's the goal, that we want to reach a level of chanting where we can actually continuously cry out to Krishna from our heart.
I feel what he meant was there has to be a unified definition and understanding of love. Yeah. Nice. So yeah, now we'll, you know, take, you know, you can speak or, you know, type. Yeah. So good to see you, Dominic. We've missed you.
Yeah, so good to see you too.
Yeah, we were thinking, where is Dominic? You want to share something? Anything that stood out for you?
Well, I was thinking about the last video and like Einstein saying all those things about love, and and also like the importance of sound and hearing it. So like recently in my life, I've been trying to say like to my family or to people that I do actually love, to like say that I love them and like return and have that returned to me, just because like sound is important. And I feel like when it comes to love, it is very like generalized and talked about a lot, but a lot of people don't really say it regularly, or like we don't really introduce that into our lives on a daily basis. So
very nice.
Like I've been practicing that.
Very nice. Yeah. And, you know, when we are, you know, experiencing, see, that's the other thing. And we talked about this yesterday, that just like a river, because it's receiving the water from its source, right? So, you know, you have all these rivers, you go to the mountain and there is a source like Ganga. People actually travel all the way to the Himalayas to go see the source of Ganga. And the reason why Ganga can expand and give so much, you know, so many people actually live on the banks of this great river and derive their sustenance is because she is receiving her water from that source. So when we are also in the same way connected to our source, then we have extra. We always have an overflow, you know, that we can share and give. And then that love actually becomes conditional. Because one of the greatest challenges with love in this world is that there are so many conditions attached to it always. And then that's what creates, you know, frustration and unmet expectation and so on and so forth. But when we are feeling full, then we can, you know, from that space, and not just full, but we're overflowing, right? Then we have that to give without expecting anything in return. And that is the nature of spiritual love, that it is completely unmotivated and uninterrupted. So, thank you. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes, Shweta.
Yeah. I just remembered a movie I saw that is, I think its name is Castaway. And it's about a boy who wants to run away from everyone and everything. And he just went to Alaska and he lives alone there. And he struggles a lot to survive there. I mean, he eats something, you know, some plants and get poison out of it. And then he reads the book where it's written how to, you know, detoxify it. And he struggles a lot. And after experiencing this kind of life, he dies. But his last words written in the book was, happiness is sharing. Like when you can't share, I mean, how can I explain? Yeah, like after experiencing this kind of life, the conclusion was that you are happy when you share anything with others. Like he was living alone, so he realized that at first he wanted to run away from everyone and everything, but at last he realized that happiness is sharing the moments and the like.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense, right?
It's about love also, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So beautiful. Delia, any thoughts from you?
Yes, I have two thoughts. First, talking about like the goal, I was talking to Achyuta Prabhu recently about something I was struggling with. And I said, why am I having so much difficulty with this? When all I want is to love and serve Krishna. And he goes, well, no, that's not all you want, because you also want this other thing that you're struggling with. So I thought, yeah, he's right. So then I amended my statement. And then I said, what I want the most is to only want to love and serve Krishna. And then I feel like that's true. Yeah.
So nice.
And then the other thing about like sharing is, and like talking about Krishna and everything is, whenever I see my boyfriend, I always tell him about my day, and he's not like involved in all of this. But if my day was Gita class and then chanting and I had some realization or whatever, I thought about something, I'll share that with him just as my experience, not trying to convince him or anything.
Right.
And it's kind of funny. I was reminded also of the story about the thief from a couple of classes back, because sometimes he'll try to talk to me and joke, and he mixes up Krishna and Shiva. So he'll say, oh yeah, like, and I go, no, Krishna. And so he goes, okay, well, I the way for me to remember it is if I say Hare Krishna, then I can remember it. And I'm like, yes, you say that, and then you'll remember it.
Oh my goodness.
That's good. He's bringing Krishna and Radha together.
This is what I mean, that you guys are, filled with so much nectar, and we love to hear this. Beautiful, Delia, both the points. I think the first one is, it's true, that's what we're trying. We really want to, we really want to desire that, this is all we can desire, because right now there are all these other things, and very nice.
And we can desire to desires, because sometimes even the desire is not there, so we can desire to desire.
Yeah, and Sachinandan Maharaj says it so beautifully. He says, cry for Krishna, and then he says, well, if you cannot cry for Krishna, then cry so that you can, you can cry for.
Yeah, cry that you can't cry for Krishna.
Yeah. So, Bhavanit, any thoughts? Naji, Rajesh, anybody? Even the older group, Tilata, Radhika, Juma.
I think one thing that occurred to me is that about sharing. Actually, we all share things all the time. I mean, everyone. Like for example, watching a movie, reading a book, or watching a sports event, playing some video games. We all share this with others so that our joy increases. But the only thing is that we share wrong things, not the right things.
Such a good point. I mean, the whole media, right? The whole, like our life on the social media is basically based on sharing, right? Sharing and liking.
And that's what sharing does. It connects our hearts.
Yeah.
It connects our hearts, and then the connected hearts, they feel happier together.
We cannot take this away, actually. I was just thinking about it, like back in the day, like, in India, in the villages, the ladies would all get together. There used to be these community wells where they would come to draw the water from. And so every morning they would go there and they would draw the water. And then, that was their time to come together and talk, right? And share with each other what's happening, what their plans are, and this and that. And, and now with modern technology, it's sort of like these social media platforms have become like these.
So from well to the wall, basically, we share on the Facebook wall.
But it's the same need, within us to reveal our heart. And in fact, there's a very beautiful verse in Nectar of Instruction where one of the greatest teachers of Bhakti, he's actually considered, like, we are all considered to be like his followers, Rupa Goswami. He talks about these 6 things that he says can actually completely take us to the highest perfection of Bhakti. And one of them is expressing.
Or that is the definition of Bhakti. Practical definition of Bhakti is Dadati Pati Ganati, which means to give somebody something with love and receive it with love. Dadati Pati Ganati, Guhyam Akhyati Prichyati, that to share something in confidence with somebody that you are close to. And then also hear in confidence. And then Bhunkte Bhojayate, that to offer some prasad to somebody and also receive prasad from somebody. So these are the 6 loving exchanges, that practical application of loving exchanges between somebody who wants to progress in spiritual life.
And that's what Bhakti is all about. Like, we come together and we're talking about such confidential topics. We're revealing our heart. We're talking about, what's in our heart, right? And by doing that, we're developing this very beautiful connection. And what's the first one? Dadati Prati
Ganati.
And then what's the first one again? How does it start?
Dadati Prati Ganati,
Yeah, right. So then giving the gift. And so the greatest gift is one of giving this gift of Krishna consciousness and, just our attention, right? And then when we come together, and hopefully we will one day, then we can cook for each other also. I know Delia wanted to share, send some really yummy stuff, which we couldn't, but one day we'll do that.
Yeah, I'll share the link with you. Just give me 1 second.
I think there's also something about that. Can you just read that? I think it's Ashley there. We have come so far from Central Godhead, where we were with Krishna. We cry out, we chant, we pray, we meditate on him, and where we come from and what it's like. We find it so beautiful that we do so much to encourage each other. And then when we really dig deep, that Krishna is in the heart of all. That poem from Einstein is so beautiful that so many people at the end of their lives realize this and seek to share this with the world. So beautiful, very nice, very nice. How do we develop this bhava, the ultimate longing to love Krishna like the Gopikas of Vrindavan? My love for Krishna is not so strong. It comes and ebbs out. Nice.
Very nice question. Yeah, and then the process is the best and the most effective process for developing this bhava, this ultimate longing to love Krishna, comes from chanting Krishna's names. Chanting Krishna's names, and even though right now it feels that it is hard sometimes and we are not able to focus, and my mind is running here and there and my chanting is not good, but just Prabhupada gives the example that if somebody has jaundice, then sugar candy tastes very bitter. But the only remedy for curing the jaundice is to keep taking the sugar candy. So keep chanting every single day. When we chant, we can make some, we can try and make some very tiny improvement. And like that, when we keep trying and keep giving it to others, then Krishna will give us. He'll see our effort that we are struggling, we are calling out, and he will give us that love.
And the best way to get that love is actually by hanging out with those that have a similar desire to develop that love. Just like Prabhupada, once somebody asked Prabhupada, you know, how do you become a devotee? So Prabhupada asked a question, how do you become a drunkard? Yeah, so you go out, you hang out with others who like to drink, right? And so then they say, oh, here, take a sip. And then you do that. And then next day you come back again. And then very soon, you know, you know, the first time maybe you don't even like it so much, right? But you spend enough time, then you start liking it, right? So it's like that. Bhakti, of course, is also, you know, in fact, the, you know, Rumi and all these poets, they talk so much about this being an intoxication. So, you know, this chanting is like that. And you just, if you spend time, and that's why we keep emphasizing that there's nothing else that we, you know, we can do, and we find ourselves feeling frustrated, you know, just show up. I think Rumi uses the word tavern, right? So, you know, you come together in a tavern and you just, yeah, it is. I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's so powerful, you know.
Yeah, just hearing about Krishna and chanting about Krishna.
That's all.
And eating prasadam.
And if you can't even do that, then we just watch others do it.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Kunti Devi says in her prayers, she says, Shinvanti gayanti girnanti bhikshnasa smaranti nandanti tavehite jana saeva paschanti achirena tavakam bha prabhavo paramam padambujam. It says Shinvanti gayanti. Shinvanti means to hear. Shinvanti gayanti means to sing. Shinvanti gayanti girnanti bhikshnasa smaranti nandanti tavehite jana. Remembering. Or even if you can't do any of this, even if you just take a little bit of pleasure in others doing it, then also very, very quickly, Saiva Pashyanti Achirena Tavakam, that very, very quickly you will see Krishna very quickly. So bhakti is very, very simple. It's we have to just keep making that effort, and then Krishna is very kind.
And in the same book, The Nectar of Instruction, maybe one day we'll pick up this book also, Nectar of Instruction. It talks about there are 3 principles for success in bhakti. And we should just, you know, we should etch these 3 principles in our heart and just stay with it, because we're going to go through ups and downs, just like what you mentioned. So the first principle is utsaha, which we have plenty of when we first start. And we think, oh, I found this gold mine, and, you know, and this is it. And then, you know, then we realize, you know,
there's work to do.
There's work to do, and there are other desires, you know. So there's utsaha. So then the utsaha, which means enthusiasm, which we need, and we must always be enthusiastic. It has to be balanced with determination, which is nishchaya. Nishchaya means that even though one day I may feel like, you know, then also I just do what I have to, and I don't follow the dictates of my mind. So there's a discipline there. And then also, you know, you're still doing utsaha and there's nishchaya, but then we still think, okay, when is it happening? Are we there yet? Then the third thing that we need is dharya. Dharya means patience. That means that, you know, Prabhupada gives the example that once a woman gets pregnant, she still has to wait 9 months to have the baby. So in the same way, you know, we may be doing everything, but we have to wait for it to fructify. So if we do these 3 things, then we will get there. But sometimes what happens is that people start out, but then they get discouraged, or they feel that, oh, you know, so what are you doing?
I'm just sharing that link for those 6 loving exchanges that you can read.
Achita Baba said, the more consistent you are in your chanting, when you feel very connected to God, the more it will be there for you when you feel more distanced. Yeah, so nice. Very nice. Yes. Very nice. Yeah. And this is actually, there's also another thing that sometimes, you know, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is described that Krishna, and one day we will actually do this Leela Kirtan. This is one of my favorite sections, you know. So when we get into Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll do it during the month of Kartik, where Krishna plays the flute and he gets all the gopis to come. And then the gopis, they leave everything that they're doing. Someone's in the middle of feeding their baby, someone's cooking for their husband. And as soon as they hear the flute in the middle of the night, they just drop everything and they rush to the forest to meet Krishna in the dead of the night. And it's dangerous, you know. And then when they're dressing up, they don't know how to dress themselves properly. So they put things upside down, but they don't care. And then when they go there, then Krishna disappears, you know, and they feel so abandoned, and they feel like, like he called us here and we gave up everything and we came rushing to him, and then he just left us. And so in that state of separation, the gopis actually go in a state of complete absorption, and they start acting out Krishna's pastimes, and they start talking about Krishna. And then finally Krishna reappears, and the gopis are naturally a little piffed, they're not so happy. So they ask Krishna, it's like, what kind of lover are you anyways? Like, and then they, ask this question that there are three kinds of people. The first kind, when they get love, then they only give love in return. So it's like a business transaction for them. And then the second kind of love is where even if they get the love, they still don't reciprocate, right? And then the third kind of love is where even when they're receiving, they don't, what is it? Do you remember?
Third kind of love is where even if you don't get it, you still give it.
Even when you don't get it, you still get. That's the love of a parent. And so they're asking Krishna indirectly, like, okay, we don't see you, right? As, being a very magnanimous person. So then Krishna describes that sometimes when I hide, it is so that they can, I haven't disappeared. I'm simply hiding behind a bush, and just so that the love can actually get even more inflamed, because when there is separation, and when you have lost an object of your love, then your desire for that object actually increases. So Krishna, even when it feels like Krishna's hiding, or he's not really, we feel that sort of loss of enthusiasm, then we must just understand that it's Krishna still watching us. What are we doing in that state? And just keep going on. So it's a little bit of an esoteric point, but I think you guys are.
So we are having the Radhika, we are having the quiz tomorrow.
May I be so blessed to permanently see Krishna enthroned of my heart. What a beautiful prayer, Sindhu and Raghu. And we all pray for that as well.
That happens to all of you.
To all of you.